Hey guys, what's going on? It's Rekt Capital. Welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about whether this head and shoulders that we spoke about over the past few days has been invalidated, or are we actually seeing a confirmation of this head and shoulders? Let's dive right into the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and like this video if you've enjoyed the content over the past few days as well. So this is the head and shoulders, and just to give a preface to this, we've been talking about a lower high and a failed retest of the range high of the monthly range, this blue to blue range being the monthly range. So this range high has essentially been invalidated with a breakout, failed retest here. We spoke a bit about this in yesterday's video, and since then we've been talking about a head and shoulders forming, this cluster of price action representing the left shoulder and the right shoulder forming somewhere around this region. And we haven't really seen a cluster of price action develop, but slowly but surely we might be seeing the formation of this right shoulder here. And many of you will probably think, are we seeing an invalidation of this head and shoulders now that we've seen a flick up in price action? And the best way to think about this is that at the moment we are still seeing structurally a lot of signs contributing to this being a head and shoulders, whether this cluster of price action being the left shoulder here, this being potentially a right shoulder, although at the same time we have to note that this head here is a rounded bottom. So if you were to inverse the chart, this is a rounded bottom, looks a bit like a V-shaped reversal, but less volatile, so more gradual in just peaking there. Double top here, so an M-like formation, which has been broken down from. You can see this being the confirmation after some support bounces being weak enough to break beyond this 23,300 level. So a rounded top formation here being the head of this head and shoulders, and at the same time this now being a lost support. And many could make this argument for a flick up just to turn this bottom into a new resistance bit before just breaking down. Now that's technically a possibility, and if that were to occur, then this cluster of price action wouldn't actually be the right shoulder that we're all waiting for, really, because this would still just be the second leg of a bearish confirmation. So this daily candle being the first breakdown confirmation, and this flick up to turn this old support into a new resistance would be the second step of that confirmation, and the third step being the follow through that occurs from that rejection. So this could still technically not be even the right shoulder, but of course we are looking for a cluster of price action. But is this really that cluster of price action that is going to denote and form this right shoulder for us? It's a little bit too early to say, because right over here this shoulder was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, so that was a week long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the 6th day. And are we seeing this cluster form here, or is this going to be a relief rally to turn this old support into new resistance before forming a right shoulder cluster? So that's something to bear in mind. But the thing to also really stress here is that we are seeing not only structurally this head and shoulders still remain intact, but at the same time we're seeing declining volume, which is what you tend to see in classical head and shoulders formations. So you see declining volume across from the left shoulder at the head and then to the right shoulder having the least amount of volume. And this is something I talk about in my technical analysis course and patterns and formations, so feel free to check that out if you're interested in learning a bit about TA. But the psychology here underpinning this volume profile, because volume is it's telling a psychological story. So this left shoulder is where we see a lot of the volume. People are FOMOing, waiting for a dip after a strong rally to just buy the dip. And that buy the dip and FOMOing adds to another move towards the upside, but it's occurring on declining volume, as you can see. And declining volume just means declining interest. People aren't really FOMOing anymore. People don't necessarily want to buy. Happily, many people will be selling after a strong rally and taking profits, and that psychology And that psychological story underpinned by the volume is contributing to a slowing in the momentum in this gradual upticking and then slowly just not fading out, essentially that buy side momentum fading out. And if you think about this head as a technical uptrend here, well, then this technical uptrend is broken at some point, because that high low here, that imaginary high low that I'm talking about right now, has been lost, and that technical uptrend is now turning into a technical downtrend. And we're of course seeing this form right over here. But one of the things to mention, well, at which point is this head and shoulders going to invalidate? And if we just focus on this green level, because of course this green level is a directional bias dictator for this head and shoulders, for downside continuation. And one of the things to mention here is that when we had this crash back here, we then enjoyed a short-term relief rally towards the upside. So after a strong downtrend, we're seeing a uptrend, micro uptrend, of course, a relief rally, but nonetheless, what was really important for this relief rally was a daily candle close, followed by a retest, volatile retest attempt of this green level before further continuation. That's what was really important to protecting this region. And of course, we briefly lost this later on, but this green level holding as a support is what will enable upside. And then we saw another crash and another crash, and now we're seeing this sort of move right now. A move towards the upside. And could this daily candle above this green level enable somewhat of this situation? Well, we also have to bear in mind that this could be a fake out, just like over here, where a daily candle close followed by a retest led to actually more downside. So a failed retest. So essentially, a daily candle close itself isn't enough. We need to see a successful retest, much like what we saw right over here, this being a successful retest here. So that's what we would need to see, not only a daily candle close guaranteeing that further upside, but a successful retest. And at the same time, should we indeed see that daily candle close followed by a successful retest, then rejecting at this, the underside of this rounded top here, that would actually be bearish. Bitcoin would need to reclaim this lost support back into support in order to challenge this lower high for this to be a fake breakdown scenario, essentially speaking. So even if this is reclaimed as a support and Bitcoin rallies towards this area and rejects there, it could easily return to the green level and lose it as a support. So if we just focus about this on the weekly time frame, we're seeing a weekly breakdown followed by upside continuation, upside wicking into the green level, then downside continuation. Well, this is an idea that I explored in yesterday's video and over this week, really. So just yesterday's video, because the weekly candle close was in yesterday. And right now we are seeing a green candle try to form above the green level here, this green horizontal. And it could end up as upside wicking, somewhat like this, for instance, or a little bit more of a wick, because if we were to see a move here and rejection here, and then Bitcoin returns to the green level and actually weekly candle closes below the green level, all at the end of the week, because it's Tuesday now and lots of volatility can still happen. We can see a bit of a relief rally, rejection, and then back here, back to square one, really. Lots of volatility, not really meaning anything in the macro sense, but then just contributing to a bearish candle close below this level, and then downside continuation into the lower half of this blue monthly range. That's something that could happen, and that's something that would support this head and shoulders thesis. And of course, at the same time, if we were to see a declining volume continue here, and then we see a red sell side breakout volume bar, so a seller candle breakout from this essentially descending triangle, we see essentially in price, if we were to see a descending triangle on price compression, non-volatility into the apex of this descending triangle before a breakout in price. But if we see this on volume, then a breakout on volume will dictate directional bias just based on what that candle, or volume bar in this case, what this volume bar is going to break out as. Is it going to be a big red sell side volume bar or a big red green volume bar? And that's going to dictate a lot of the sentiment. So a green sell side volume bar breakout would probably confirm the head and shoulders in a considerable way. So something really to take into account, especially if we form a cluster of price action here and then that sell side volume breakout occurs and we see a breakdown from the neckline. So that's the ultimate confirmation of this head and shoulders, really. So in summary, if Bitcoin daily candle closes here and successfully retests the green level as a support, then we'll probably see a relief rally to the underside of this rounded top. If it rejects there, then we're probably going to see some downside right over here. And this green level, if it doesn't hold, then we're probably going to have this cluster form, this right shoulder. But at the same time, if we do rally towards the underside here, reject and hold this green level, then we'll have a bit of a higher low here, won't we? So it would be interesting to see if this is going to be that right shoulder cluster, in which case this neckline right over here is going to be a bit higher. And that neckline would be approximately confluent with this green level. So losing this green level and that neckline would be the signal to break down from this head and shoulders, really. So in sum, not much has changed structurally in terms of confirming or invalidating this head and shoulders. It's still in play. We're still watching for that cluster of price action to form here for Bitcoin. We're seeing a lot of volatility because of the CPI news. We're going to see lots of volatility on days like that, but the most important thing is to watch out for key levels, and that's essentially in this case the neckline. But is that neckline forming here, or are we seeing it at more of a slanting angle? Are we going to continue seeing resistance here should Bitcoin actually manage to reach there? Is this green level going to hold? Can it be retested as a support? And is this volume? Are we going to see a breakout on volume? And you can see that there's still a lot of space in the apex of this descending triangle, really. Lots of space, so still lots of days for volume to just be substandard and relatively low. So the fact that we're seeing small volume and potentially a volatile move on slow volume, that's also an indication of weakness, because not much volume is supporting this recent volatile price move, so it's really running out of steam. So if we were to think of this being the 14th and still being some space for low volume here, we could see this still continue for a week or so, right? Or even extend to that, depending on how low this volume will continue to be and how long it's going to compress into the apex of this descending triangle. We could still see not much going on in terms of the volume for even 2 weeks. So really important to watch out for this breakout volume bar and where that breakout volume bar is going to occur relative to the price level, because if we're near this green level or near the neckline and that volume bar spikes and breaks out to break this downtrend here that we've been essentially seeing since really a month now, since mid-January, if we see that, then that's going to be ultimate confirmation of this head and shoulders probably breaking down and validating as a bearish formation to trigger downside continuation to a lower Bitcoin price number. In any case, that's about it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoyed this one. I'm Rekt Capital. Of course, sign up to the Rekt Capital newsletter. There's a link in the description down below if you'd like to read more about, for instance, my altcoin watch list, which is launching tomorrow, Wednesday. I'll be sharing a few altcoins that I'm watching on this market dip and which I'm going to be playing. So I'll be talking about accumulation strategies, which altcoins I'm watching, and of course, once we see reversals confirm, where would be a good time to start averaging out of the market, especially if you're trading it. So feel free to sign up to the Rekt Capital newsletter in the link in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching this one. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.